evening, Rabbi Eisenberg. Good evening, everybody.
Hi there, David. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. And how are you today?
Yes, Baruch Hashem, very well, thank you.
Very good. Well, I've got a surprise for you. I don't know if you know about this.
Uh-oh.
We have not one guest, but we have two guests this week.
See, you didn't tell me about the other guest.
I didn't tell you about the other guest because you're going to have to guess who he is, okay? And I'm going to bring him in later. But first of all, let's bring in perhaps our first guest.
I think who the other guest could be. You know, if we had Eric Rusendahl last week, it's got to be Michael Gasworth or someone like that.
Nah.
Come on.
Somebody who has got the educational and also recruitment and also job market all at his fingertips. It'll all become very clear soon. But in the meantime, I think we may as well bring in our guest, Mr. Yitzy Ginsbury. Good evening. How are you?
Good evening. Thank you very much. Yes, I'm well, thank you.
And I suppose.
Hi, Yitzy, how are you? Nice. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on.
That's all right. Even I don't know the mystery guest.
Well, it's a secret. It's a real secret. I suppose, Yitzy, this is you're the second Ginsbury we've had on this show. I'm afraid we're going down in order here, but a very warm welcome back to Shrubs. So,
thank you.
Your memories of Shrubs must be from when you were about this tall.
Yeah, sitting in the front there, yeah, with Mr. Green Oliver Sholem poking my ear every time I made a noise. Fond memories.
Jules sat next to you over there?
Jules sat behind me, 1 feet behind me.
Oh, Jules Oliver Sholem. That was the real old-time Eden. They were phenomenal.
Yeah. And I think, David, your grandfather with his smile that we'll never forget. Is that your grandfather, is he?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I don't forget about him either. Yeah. Well, Yitzy, thank you.
We'll have Rodney watching tonight. Rodney, I'm sure Rodney remembers Yitzy, you know, from the early days. There he goes, Rodney.
There's Rodney. Yitzy, thank you very much for giving up your time this evening. We're going to have a chat with you first, and then we'll bring in our other guests. So, Yitzy, your day-to-day work is for the organization Jewel. And predominantly, this is an organization that deals with employment. Would you say for the community in general, or is it for one pocket of the community in particular?
No, it's very, very much cross-communal. We see 450 people a year, and the demographic split, probably 30% are from, you might want to call the non-Haredi market, if that's the demographic you want to give, but at least, 70-30 split between the Haredi. We're very much cross-communal. As it says in our charity, we're across Greater Manchester, including Trafford and Hale and South Manchester, but very much North Manchester across the board.
Fantastic. So give us a little bit of a background for those of us who aren't familiar with Jewel. Give us a bit of a background of how long it's been going for, what its principal aims are, and who's behind it.
Okay, so it actually started as the JCOM Employment Agency back in 2008, so 13 years ago. And that was started by a gentleman called Norman Younger and Menachem David Zaltzman. They started it as an employment agency, completely not-for-profit. And then it developed over the years. I fortunately have been with it from the beginning, from February 2008. And back in a couple of years ago, it changed to the Jewel Foundation, just to give it a more overall employment, business and training. So Jewel standing for Jewish Education, Work, Enterprise and Learning. And the trustees are two from North Manchester, Philip Korn and Judith Myers. And from South Manchester, we've got David Zucker and Craig Lewis. So as I said before, we do three things: employment, business and training. Employment is to make people work ready. People think we're just about job placements. That is an important bit of our work, but actually making sure people are work ready, they understand what it means to work, they understand what employers' expectations are, is key. And that includes CV writing, careers advice, interview techniques, business, making sure, business support, making sure people have an idea that they can turn it into reality. and then training, making sure people have the skills and their qualifications to enter the workplace.
So when you say people have an idea and make it into reality, we're talking about startup businesses that need nurturing and building.
Yeah, very much for the startup businesses. Someone comes, we do have people come to us and they want to start a business. Can you give me an idea? And the answer is no, we don't do that. They have to come with their idea, but we will then help them. Even as simple things, the difference between sole trader and limited company, making sure they've got a strong business plan, they understand market research, and just manage their expectations through the process.
And if have there been any big companies that have or even medium-sized companies that have started with Joule or JCOM and are well known within the community at the moment?
There are. I mean, the business support, we only started a couple of years ago. Right. I would say we've placed hundreds of people into work, and I get a lot of pride when people come to me and they've been in work, 10 years and they've been in a job and it was through us. I'd say satisfaction is always difficult because there's so many people still looking for work, but there's definitely that sense of pride that they've actually, started with us.
Yitzy, if I can just ask you, Rodney's made a comment over here, which goes back to intimate history here. When we went to Rabbi Ginsbury to offer him the job, he was in Liverpool. Rebbetzin Judy opened the door with Yitzy in her arms. I'm sure you were only but a baby back then. But how did you come to sort of find yourself back in Manchester and focusing on employment particularly?
Yes, I got married in 2007 to a Manchester girl and decided to stay in Manchester. Was looking for work actually for 6 months, and it was quite a tough time. My wife worked, so she went out in the mornings and I tried going around looking for work. So I felt, I knew what it means to, get up in the morning and not have that focus and have that job to go. So at 6 months looking for work, and actually considered moving to London, funnily enough, for work. I know we're going to come on to that about opportunities. And then there's actually Norman Younger, who used to have a business, Formations Direct, employing about 15 people from the community. And he offered me an opportunity, and I've got immense hakar tov and gratitude to him for giving me that chance. It's something I tell a lot of employers, and I hope we can get out of this evening. Giving someone a chance is so important, building them up and giving them that. And after working for him for about a year, he set up this project, and I was working part-time. So he offered me to set it up with him, and go full-time. And having that knowledge, having that 6 months, I believe really helps me understand people when they go through unemployment.
And Norman is a huge influence over for many years over sort of encouraging efforts to encourage younger people to get themselves on the ladder. And I know that there's a lot of people like yourself who owe Norman a great sort of deal of gratitude in terms of the time. We're not talking about money necessarily. It's time, it's encouragement, it's just putting you in touch with the right people and encouraging you to do something. And that is very often all that one needs, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Fantastic. So you might be wondering who our next guest is, and I will tell you, he reached out to us earlier on this week, a well-known face from Shrubs, but he's also very passionate about this topic when it comes to employment opportunities, and that is none other than our very own Jeff Radovan, who you'll both be familiar with. Jeff.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I know Yitzy. So we go back some years, so it's interesting how we're touching base this evening on here tonight, because the organisation is absolutely amazing. When I was in a difficult time, I went to see Yitzy, and it was absolutely, he put me on the right track. He didn't get me a job, but he put me in an area which allowed me to move on. Hopefully I'm going to give a bit of a background, if David lets me, where I'm coming to all this.
Sure, Jeff, fire away.
Okay, right. So, as I say, I started off as a young boy, a 16-year-old, didn't do well at school, went back to college. And I went through the academic structure, I eventually became an electronic engineer. Now, through the 70s and 80s, there was a dip in the market and various things happening. But one thing I found that helped me, and one that I've encouraged both my own children and also anybody I've met and all the students I'm working with, is the educational side, the training. And it comes in different ways. Not every young person wants to go on to university. Some want to do apprenticeships. Some want to go straight into a job. I know when I met Yitzy, he sort of put me on the right line with the CVs and using things like CV Library, which I'm sure he knows all about. And one thing about it, the market today is buoyant. There's a lot of job opportunities. And one thing I always say, you have to throw mud at wall for something to stick. The more mud you throw at the wall, something will stick. You've got to throw those CVs out. You've got to go on to LinkedIn and everything else. So there's a massive market. And where I came into all this is that I've, in the last 10 years, been involved in engineering training and working with apprentices. But also, I was helping some of the apprentices retrain, get new jobs. I even helped my own family. I've guided one or two of our cousins. And for what it's worth, I've sort of gave a few ideas to my own children, which was not as easy said than done. But Baruch Hashem, they're doing very, very, very well. I don't know from my sort of doing, but whatever. But as I say, when I looked at the strapline, there is a lot of jobs out there in all industries, in commerce, engineering, in sales. And as I always said to my boys and to friends and family and to all that, is go for the dream. Go for your dream. Go for what really floats your boat. I've always been an engineer. I've been tinkering with electronics since the age of about 14 and 15. And if you see behind me, this is my workshop. This is where I do all the work. I do a lot of remote work now. Everything I do is to do remotely. I go once a week to Liverpool and I run these videos and Zoom sessions, stuff like that. But the market is so buoyant for everybody out there. And that's about it, basically. I teach H&C students who come on for us doing distant learning. I've done the full-time students, day release, school kids, been right across the board. Now I'm coming to my latter end of my life. I still want to carry on and put more into both our own community and into the wider community as well. So that's my bag, really.
That's fun. That's a fantastic pitch. You get my vote, Jeff. Jeff, tell me your sort of field of expertise. It's electrical and electronic engineering, isn't it? Are you seeing that there's a lack of kids moving up into the sciences and into engineering in particular, or is it more appealing nowadays because of everything that computers do for us?
Yeah. The problem is if a young boy or girl wants to go on to do engineering at university, academically they need quite high grades. If they go through the apprenticeship route, they go and just need their basic GCSEs. They do a BTEC and they move on to into a company. There is a massive shortage of skilled engineers because they weren't recruiting a few years ago. In the last, say, 5-10 years, the UK has become a leader in a lot of industrial background. Pharmaceutical, that's a massive one now. With COVID, there's a big industry in medical electronics. In fact, I was speaking to somebody in our show who was looking at doing a sort of medical course. They are now developing the medical area. So yes, to answer your question, there's a shortage of young engineers coming into it. There's a desperate shortage. And here's an example. My previous company I worked for up in Stockport, I was talking about my community. And this guy said, look, if there's enough coming over from North Manchester, we'll get kosher food in. No problem. This is a UK company. If there was enough market, they would sort the cash side of it out for them. So yeah, because there's desperate short of skilled engineers coming into the market.
So what would you say, for example, to somebody that was with Yitzy in Yitzy's Jewel, and then would you come over to them and say to them, listen, we can offer you guys apprenticeships, we can train in some of your people. Is that something that you'd be able to offer them, for example, or that you'd be able to guide them on?
Right. First thing is, I've changed job in the last 6 months. So I work for a company in Liverpool for various reasons, but I'm still in connection with my old company, which is called Teacher Training in Stockport. I'm still in regular contact. They call me in to do various consultancy and training. If you rang me up and say, look, can you pop in and have a chat? We're looking at an engineering program. With pleasure. I can't do it during working hours, but if it's early evening, I'm quite happy to come in, have a chat, discuss what opportunities are, and put them in touch with people. The only problem is with the City Training, it's in South Manchester. You can do it at Bury College, one or two other places, but it depends. I mean, in the Sacred communities, they don't have a problem doing that. It's an easier route to take through apprenticeships, but the advantage is that they will get BTEC, their HNC, the qualifications on the tools, and then move up to HNC, and that's worth more than a degree. A lot more companies will take them on board, and surprisingly, some of them will even sponsor them to do a degree and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm quite happy to. But when I meet a prospective student, I've got to see that they're excited about it, because not everybody wants to do engineering. It's not everybody's bag. They may want to do sales and they want to do commerce. So we're going to find that interest. If they're interested and they're fired up, it's so much easier. When I was at 16, I was fired up to do engineering. That's why I was able to progress academically. I was never really doing very well at school, but I found an area that I enjoyed, and that's why I ended up becoming an engineer.
We're going to come back to that in a second, Jeff. Thank you very much. Yitzy, tell us about your views on apprenticeships.
Yeah, thanks, David. I think apprenticeships have changed massively in the last few years. The government have put a lot of money and a lot of emphasis on apprenticeship degrees, which are level 5, 6, and 7. Level 5 being equivalent to a foundation degree, level 6 being a bachelor's, and level 7 a master's. And people think apprenticeships are 16-year-old school leavers who are going to get £4.20 an hour, and they're doing it because they should really be in school. That's what apprenticeship used to be. They're really not like that now. You can be an apprenticeship. You can do an apprenticeship, earning a significant salary and working towards a level 6 or 7 apprenticeship, which is an equivalent to a degree. So we work with employers to encourage them. If we have someone who's 25, never really worked before, really keen on doing engineering, they can go to an employer, say, employ me, and I will work towards a degree. And after a couple of years, 2 or 3 years, they will have that level 6 or 7. And the massive benefit is that the government pay 95% of the training costs. So instead of having that student debt or student loan or grant or whatever it is, the government will pay 95% of that training to encourage that apprenticeship. So it's something we work a lot with to encourage. I'll be honest with you, I'm doing a level 6 apprenticeship at the moment in careers guidance.
Fantastic.
One of my staff are doing it as well, because it's really important, to personal development. So it can be done, and it should be done.
And without generalizing too much, I'm presuming, particularly, and again, this maybe focuses on one side of our community than another, and you tell me if I've got this wrong, but I'm presuming that on the Haredi side of our community, there are less people coming out of school with qualifications at sort of top levels in terms of A levels, etc. And therefore an apprenticeship route, particularly if they've been in learning for quite a few years, an apprenticeship route may be more applicable to somebody like that to help them to get on that ladder.
Yeah, well, exactly. Especially if they, going to university, very often you'll need a access course. You'll need A levels. An apprenticeship, you can do a level 6 apprenticeship, which, like I said, equivalent to a bachelor's degree. And all you need is GCSEs, English and Maths. And I'll shout out to my mum, who managed to find my English and Maths GCSE results in some dark cupboards in London. So I didn't have to do functional skills again. But yeah, an apprenticeship, like you say, someone who's coming out, hasn't got that A levels or access course, can do an apprenticeship degree with just GCSEs.
So Clive Moss-Barkley's listening to you at home, Jeff, and he's a big fan of yours, as you know. He's asked you a question. Jeff, will they get time off for Shabbos, Yom Tov, Friday afternoons in the winter? I guess this is more of a general question to both of you, but to Jeff initially, how much of a worry is that for a frum boy these days?
Okay, well, let me answer the question. Quite often, if I started a new job, before I actually start it, I get the contract first. It's a bit of a trick where you don't discuss about the Ontavim and Friday nights, what the object is. They have to give it to you anyhow, but I've never had a problem. The first thing you do, you get that contract signed, and then when you're in for the first day, you make it aware, and they have to follow it, that they must, you're leaving early on a Friday evening and you want the Ontavim. But what I always do is I don't push all the holidays right away. I work in slowly, for example. Like this year with Tish on a Sunday, it's a relief because I don't have to take a day off from work because I can't work on a fast day. But I box clever on this one. So to answer you, Clive, yes, most companies now know it's by law. In fact, my new company, I said, look, I'm taking these days off. I didn't ask her, can I have these days off? I said, I am taking these days off. And she wouldn't even have the chance to give in any argument. And they know it. 99.9% of employers are okay about it. If you've got an employer who gets a bit funny about it, you don't want to work with them. Do not want to work for a company like that. But they are very obliging. The only thing is what's sometimes difficult is if you want to wear a chapel. I find it a bit difficult. I have tried it, but I'm aware have been no problem about it. At home, when I'm in my office, that's why I've gone over to do remote learning now. And most of them see me with my chapel on my head, and then they start asking me, especially from Manchester, oh, do you know? In fact, they mentioned the shrubberies of all places. They've done some work there. Don't know why. It always comes up. I've had a guy come on about a month ago. He said, yeah, I know that synagogue near you, the one in Prestwich.
There's worse places to be associated with, Jeff.
When Clive probably started work before me, it was very, very difficult. Back in the 60s and 70s, they had no idea. But by employment law, they have to give you. I know all the employment. I've been through it backward and forward to do with that, and I've been through when they've been a bit funny about it, but they are quite cool about it. And usually you put the extra mile in. Most people I know put the extra mile in, put the extra few hours in. I mean, my missus knows me. I start sometimes at 6 in the morning, finish at 5 at night. Friday afternoons, I try and finish early. In fact, in the summer, when my old employer, they had to kick me out at 4 o'clock. But I didn't have to come home early because Shabbos wasn't until 8, 9 o'clock. But I was still there. They're all going out. I wasn't. I was happy to stay and get on with the job.
It's interesting. I think in the post-COVID era, Yitzy, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but there's a lot more of a push towards flexible working anyway. So this whole notion of choosing your hours and perhaps not being there exactly 9 till 5 every single day, that helps young families, young parents a lot, doesn't it?
It does. I'll be honest, even pre-COVID, a lot of companies, when it came to Friday afternoons, were anyway being flexible because a lot of the workforce want to switch off for an early weekend.
Yeah.
I will, Jeff, I'll be honest with you, I'd say that we tend to tell people, be open before, right from the outset. You'll be amazed how many days, I put a question out there, how many days do you think it can ever be that you have to take off for Yom Tovim? Not including Chol HaMoed. Rabbi Eisenberg, you might pick me up on it and say, Chol HaMoed, you shouldn't work, but if you take let's work
without Chol HaMoed for now.
Yeah.
Right. It's about 11 days. It's about 11 days, isn't it, on average each year?
It's actually only 13 days because there are a lot of Yom Tovim will fall out on a Shabbat Sunday. You'll have bank holidays, Pesach. So with 28 days being statutory, you've got plenty of days within your allowance to take off. Just be upfront with employers. Tell them from the outset, you need to have, here's a year in advance, my dates I need to take off. And to answer that question, the 13 days is the maximum it can be because of, just to explain that again, if Pesach falls out on a Shabbat Sunday, for example, then also Rosh Hashanah will fall out Shabbat Sunday. It might be that a Friday, Erev Pesach is bank holiday. Very often Pesach falls with Easter. So it just, the days that you'd have to take off, that doesn't include Erev. It is difficult, let's be honest, being observant, it is difficult. Chol HaMoed, Erevs, I'll never forget working Erev Pesach, really, really difficult. I had to go the day after Rosh Hashanah to London, 5 o'clock in the morning. It's difficult, but you do that for Parnassa, you do that in a living.
So maybe that takes us on to sort of the next question, and this is for all three of you. Do we as Jewish people trying to live a religious Jewish life have unique employment challenges that the rest of the world don't face?
Silence.
I would say we do. It's unique. But I mean, you remember going back to America back in the post-war, apparently people who were quite from, unfortunately, if they said I'm leaving Friday afternoon or they had to work on Shabbos, they'll get sacked. It was terrible in the States. In the UK, we've not been too bad, but in recent years, with the new employment law, it's been fine. But it has been a challenge. Once you're in that company, once they know you and they know you're Jewish and you've got your days off, and they trust you, it's not a problem. But it's the first month or so when you put, like it said, I put all my holidays in for the year, and it could be up to 13 days. My wife's complaining we can't go away this year. So,
and just generally, Jeff, I mean, look, there are reports of anti-Semitism on the rise, left, right, and centre. But within the academic sort of workplace that you tend to sort of operate within, have you more latterly been the victim of anti-Semitism in any way?
I have, but I can't say which college it is for professional reasons, and I had to go through employment law and stuff like that. It's quite a local college, only one, and that was some years ago. Where
so it does happen.
It does happen, and I think it's happening more now because in the universities, it will be happening a lot in the universities through various political states of Israel. It's happening, but I'm not going to make any normal comment about that.
Okay. Over to you.
I don't know, David. I would say I don't know. I've tried very much with my employers. They're insistent I work on all the Yom Tovim. They're crazy.
I happen to know your employers, and they're very unreasonable people. Let me tell you.
Very unreasonable. Like so one time I didn't come to davening on the second night Shavuos. You can't imagine what happened.
It's because we knew you were trying to get an engineering job at university.
Is that what it was? So I can't really comment on that one. I've never really worked outside of the community, so I can't say that. I would say that Jewish people probably have different needs because our culture. But I would guess there are other people like as we mentioned before, cousins. I'm sure Muslim people might have different needs, and maybe Sikhs have different needs. Everybody's got different needs. So a Muslim person might want to have a place where they can pray, but they are they are bowing down. Where they're going to find a good place to pray, or where they also have their things.
The president has butted in, but Rabbi, we are not even allowed to pay you for working on Shabbos.
So we won't go through the halachics of that, but there's two answers to that. One is that there's an opinion in Shulchan Aruch that you can, but the other one is that you pay on a monthly basis, which is why that's okay.
Yeah,
that's the halachics for tonight.
Yeah. Can I pick up on a comment that you said before? You mentioned about the government sponsoring it. Regarding engineering, it's slightly different because the prerequisites to move on to a first degree, you really have to. There is sort of maths involved because engineering is literally full of mathematics. The prerequisites, you would have to have an A level in the maths before they will let you move on to a degree. Normally, they would let you go through the BTEC, H&Cs, and then move on to a foundation degree. But I don't know of any universities that would take you, even as a access courses, they would expect you to have some maths background first, because you would be struggling big time.
I keep coming back to you about the challenges. We haven't heard your answer yet on that one.
Yes, I would say that the challenges wouldn't necessarily be for the hours or the having the days off. There's two aspects. I do a lot of cultural awareness with employers, and it's fascinating simply the misunderstandings or the myths they have about Jewish people. Probably the funniest question I got is, are capels sacred? If it falls off, are we allowed to touch it? Are they allowed to pick it up?
Yeah.
And one person said to me, how do you keep it on? Being not much hair left. And they simply think, that we're different. And just by communicating with your colleagues, with employers, you'll be amazed. We had an employer said to me, I can't employ Jewish people because I need a separate fridge in the kitchen. And I said, well, why? He goes, because of kosher food. I said, well, how many carrier bags do you have in the fridge? He said, it's full of carrier bags. Everyone brings their own food in a carrier bag. I said, well, that's what we'll do. We'll just might double wrap it. So it's communicating. I would say the struggles people have, that people tell us, is much more the social interaction. Very often in companies, people will go out on weekends together, and being Jewish, that might be a struggle. So feeling different, but again, communicating that and saying, look, our Shabbos, it's at home, and explaining what that is. They respect that, but Jewish people have to make an extra effort not to be different in a workforce and to communicate that with colleagues.
Xmas party must be a really difficult one as well, no?
It is. I got an invitation for Xmas Friday night for this December, and my boss contacted me. She says, "Aren't you coming to the function?" I said, "I can't make it." I says, "If it's another night, I'll come down to it." But it was a good excuse. It was a Friday evening, and it's one of those things. I'm happy not to go anyhow, but I had a get out of jail card on that one.
We've got some comments coming in, so we'll work through those if you don't mind, gentlemen. So Lisa Jacobs, good evening, Lisa. How you doing? I was once in a position where my boss had a previous non-observant Jewish employee, so they couldn't understand why I was in need of time off when the previous Jewish employee hadn't made those requests. It was a tough challenge. It is a tough challenge to explain that there are different, I suppose, brands or different strands of Judaism, and not all of us keep the same standards.
Yeah, that's something that I get so often. I think, an employer, a non-Jew, they see the Jew as a Jew. They don't necessarily understand the different capitals or not wearing. And I've had it Purim. Why employer call me up? Why does the have to have off Purim? And then it's negotiating with the employer. Do you want to work employee? Sorry, do you want to work half day Purim? Lisa, I can really sympathize with that, because it's something we've got to work with and just advocate with employers that people are different and there's different spectrums.
Fantastic. Clive Moss Barkley, working for services that operate 24/7 can be a challenge for Jewish people. Easter and Pesach nearly always coincide, and everybody wants to take those days off. Actually, that's the one time of the year where I feel like it's actually okay, because we all get to sort of have our holidays at the same time, and therefore you don't feel as guilty if you're taking time off on those days. Sharon Hood, a few years ago, I worked with several Muslim colleagues in Cheetham Hill. We agreed to discuss our similarities and never to discuss Israel. We all got on beautifully, not sure how easy it would be these days. I suppose the political climate these days is slightly more tense than it was previously.
All more the reason to actually do what Sharon says. It doesn't make for good employee relationships to discuss the things that you argue about. We're not going to change our minds, not us and not them. So we might as well just say, look, let's agree to disagree. Let's agree not to discuss it, and let's move on to more important things.
Very important.
Yeah, I've learned over the years, and over 40 years of working, you just keep out of it. I mean, I had one guy who I used to work with who was a churchgoer, and he liked to. I used to explain about our Friday evenings and our Shabbos and the week Sedra and stuff like that. But he was a genuine guy. I still keep in contact with him. But anybody else, when it comes to politics, unless we're asking you about halachas and the Shabbos and Yom Tovim, that's fine. But anything to do with politics, just I used to step back away from it. Says, I don't want to know. I just make it. I don't understand it, and just walked away from it.
But equally, it's also probably one of the best opportunities we will ever have to reach out and explain ourselves to the rest of the world, and to make a Kiddush Hashem, and to sort of prove to them that there's nothing particularly strange about us. We may have strange customs, and we may have strange Yom Tovim that they don't necessarily understand, but those are fairly easily explained. And when they get to know us, we're usually pretty decent people. And I think the workplace is where most of those conversations tend to happen.
Can't agree more, David.
So I think that's sort of the difference between discussing politics and just discussing Judaism in general. So I wouldn't really want to discuss politics specifically, not with Muslims, but I'm very happy to discuss. I'm very open about our religion. I've met many, many people of the faith and of other faiths, and et cetera, et cetera. and you have a great opportunity to make a Kiddush Hashem, to show what it means to be an Orthodox Jew, and I'm proud of the ability and the chance that I've been given to be able to do this on almost a daily basis.
Clive Moss-Barkley, my colleagues agreed to go to the JS for their Xmas lunch for many years. Clive, was it successful? Did they come away feeling more or less anti-Semitic after a day out in JS? I'm sure it all went well. Lisa Jacobs, to add to that, if someone becomes more observant whilst being in the same job, that's even more of a hard explanation, I suppose, to try and sort of convince people. Yitzy, let me ask you, this is a fairly obvious question. Obviously you saw Dad doing what he does and you see him doing it today. Were you ever tempted to join the clergy, or did he convince you that it was no job for a Jewish boy?
Yeah, I think he was hoping one of his sons would go into it, and probably disappointed him. But I'd say I learned a lot from it. And believe it or not, being a rabbi's son was a challenge on its own. I could, sitting through week on week the sermons, it was, I had to sit there, and if I put my head down, did I get it from my mum? And when we got home, it was a challenge being a rabbi.
By the way, your parents said they were going to be watching this, so be careful with what you say.
Well, for the record, I have to say I could never even picture your mum remotely angry at anything.
No, of course not.
Yeah, can I just add something else that maybe, I know it's a different topic, but in the area, because looking about careers for people of all ages, one thing I made a note of on my sheet was networking. One of my sons is a brilliant networker, absolutely amazing. He went through a difficult time, but he was able to network with loads and loads of people using LinkedIn, besides using the usual CV library. But when you go into shul, when we go for the Kiddush, when we did go for the Kiddush afterwards, it's surprising how many people you meet and talk to. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And all these connections you made, and today's world works like that. If you're good at network, well, you have to be a reasonably not say a good networker, but just by chatting with people, have a bit of a schmooze, because that sometimes puts you in the right place with the right people, and that's the connection you want, and it helps you get the job. We have the qualification side, you're getting the apprenticeships, but it's finding those people that are going to employ you, and it can be tough out there, for the bigger companies. So networking does take a big part, and our shul, like a lot of shuls, you can have we're having the Kiddush, you can chat with people, discuss ideas. I know it's technical like that, but it's just the way you say it can be, I suppose the rabbi can give us, the heter to talk about something which is non-Shabbos, but it may be an opportunity after Shabbos to give somebody a ring, make that connection.
I tell that to people. We're very, very fortunate in the Jewish community. Networking is not real social class. You can go to any shul and sit next to anyone. So I tell people, take that, use that to your advantage. If you know of a company you want to get into, go and find out where that fellow davens and go for a menach or a marav or shachris, introduce yourself to him. You've got the opportunity to do that. Absolutely. And we're really fortunate for that, in our community.
Yitzy, just touching on something that Jeff said, and I know that our rabbi even puts in the odd appearance in LinkedIn, but one thing that always strikes me about LinkedIn these days is it's become a very kosher space. My timeline and my feed on LinkedIn is full of young, from business people, not necessarily telling me what they do particularly, but talking about inspiration and ideas and networking in general. You've got people like... you've got LinkedIn superstars, people like Doniel Stanton, who came from a small pocket of Presswich and has now taken America by storm. But you have people like that who are there offering inspiration. To me, it's interesting because LinkedIn to me was used to be very sterile and very professional, and that's all you ever used to see. But actually now it's seen as being, if you had to choose a social media network, it's the more kosher place that you could hang out, right?
Well, I think it's because it's focused on work and business. It's not really, people don't really use it socially. So that's why, because it's focused, people only use it really for work. So
and do you find that for people looking for jobs, is it still a good place to sort of display your wares, if you like, if you're looking for work?
Yeah, I don't think it's as much is used as much as it might be in the wider world. People still, it's about, as Jeff says, who you know and networking. But I think having your profile, people go on there straight away. I'm sure we all do it. When you want to know someone, you'll go on LinkedIn to see about them. So people will go on there, employers, to look at your CV, look at your profile. So it's important.
I know, for example, Rabbi Shai Klein, who does wills. Rabbi Klein. So from Yerushalayim. So during the week he does halachic wills and lasting powers of attorney, etc., etc. And he has a bit of a degree in law as well. And I think he's built most of his business through LinkedIn and through word of mouth. It's very much been built that way, and not so much through the traditional ways of building business that people used to build businesses.
Yeah, well, the Haredi, the Jewish way seems to be WhatsApp status nowadays. That seems to be the way to build business.
Did you know that the WhatsApp status and the WhatsApp voice note, non-Jewish people don't even know those functions exist on WhatsApp? They're almost exclusively used by Jewish people.
Correct.
I never got a voice note off anybody that wasn't one of us.
Yeah. I mean, that's the other place for networking. I mean, before COVID was the weddings and bar mitzvahs. I mean, you met people all over the country. I always got chatting with people, about jobs, and I just naturally did it. I don't know, I was just curious, but sometimes you had a card on you, to exchange cards. But if you are a sort of person just to chat to people about it, I've been overseas and met people, in other countries. It's the shul or the simcha is a great place to network.
Fantastic.
I mean, it's good,
Yitzy, can I ask you? We touched on it earlier, but we said we were going to come back to it. Opportunities, in terms of where the opportunities are these days for young people, for anybody within our community looking for jobs. Are the opportunities there? Do we have enough opportunities? How do we, as members of the community, help you to create opportunities?
You're talking about Manchester, or you're talking about what you mean?
Well, I'm going to look at Manchester because last week, just to give it a bit of context, last week we had a discussion which very much focused on the pull of London for younger people in Manchester. And one of the key points that we got to was that some of the more exciting jobs can only be found in London, and the combination of perhaps a more gregarious social scene and also a more fulfilling work life was something that London offered our young people. And are we able to create some of that here in Manchester?
Okay, so I need to give you the honest answer.
Yes, please.
It very much depends on the ambition of the person. There are many opportunities in Manchester, but there is that glass ceiling in terms of where you're going to get to in terms of salary, in terms of growing within a company. Manchester, 50 to 60,000 pounds is considered a very good salary. And the opportunity to then grow further, whether it's a partner, whether it's to go to a bigger company, that might be a struggle. But to counter that, the work-life balance, and people have to understand, in terms of the difference between Manchester and London, there is a social scene. Look at the restaurant numbers, Manchester to London. So you have to know, and I get a lot of people asking me about Manchester versus London. And I'm not sure if now's the time, but I've got a way of actually finding out what their personality is, where they're more suited to. But it is very much understanding that personality, because if their work life, if they want to join a rat race and say, I want to get there, I'm really ambitious, I aim to get the highest possible, then they might have to think of London. But if they say, actually, I'm happy to drop my kids off to school at 10 to 9 and still get to the office on time, I want to come back and be there for the kids, and there's no right or wrong, it's just a different way of life, then Manchester does have opportunities, but there is a limit to where you're going to be able to get to.
That is an honest answer.
I think there's a lot more companies setting up in the northwest now because the workforce is a bit cheaper. And land is probably cheaper, and the rate stuff like that. It's surprising how some of the companies now. I mean, the BBC, BBC have relocated to the Keys. You know, it's an organisation of that size. So I'm an advocate on Manchester. I mean, I just have, and even so, one of my kids lives in London. My other son refused to go there. He says, "I can learn, Mum. I can live a better lifestyle living in Manchester." Even so, he can go to London and, you know, his world's his oyster. So it depends. But the social life, the amount of restaurants. I mean, I was there last weekend. I like it for the weekend, but I still think Manchester is a fantastic place. We've still got places to, you know, that we can see and do. And companies are moving here, definitely moving to Manchester.
Well, we have a comment here from Sharon Hood, which pays tribute to Jewel and the opportunities that they're able to find for people. Sharon has said, "I happen to be looking for part-time work right now, and I am registered with Jewel. There have been several part-time vacancies over the past few weeks, not ones that I am interested in, but I was pleasantly surprised to see new jobs coming up each week." So there are opportunities, Yitzy, that are reaching the community on a pretty much weekly basis.
Yeah, we're fortunate. We do have new jobs, and we try and help, you know, everyone. There's not yet, you know, more jobs than people. We've got, unfortunately, more people looking for work. I would encourage employers, take that chance, give someone the opportunity. You know, we never tell people to mix business and charity. It's a really difficult thing when we go to companies. We just say, come to us first. Give us a week before you go to the high street. We don't charge. You know, so you come to us and just try. If we can't manage to find you someone, that's fine. Go to the high street, but give someone from the community a chance first.
And what level are those opportunities actually, the ones that you're getting? Like, you know, are they sort of lower down level jobs within the company that people will then have to build themselves up and prove their value to the company to get higher up in the structure?
Realistically, yes.
There's
it's a challenge. We do try and get the higher level jobs, but it's a challenge that we're always going to have, getting the right candidate for the right jobs, and the employers, you know, happy to do that. But very often they'll recruit from within for their promotions and want to take someone at the lower level.
What does somebody need to actually get a high level job? If somebody came to you and said, "Yitzy, I'm looking for a high level job. I don't want to keep on getting these small opportunities. Tell me what I need to do to get there." What would you say to them?
Show the work experience for that sector. So if you've got, a lot of people came to us during furlough, during COVID, what can they do to get a better job? And I said, volunteer, do something with your time that will show an employer you're worth it. So if you've got a sector, the most important thing is to know what you're looking for. If someone comes to me and I say, "What job do you want to do?" and they say anything, that is the biggest challenge. Because, you know, I then say anything and they say, "Oh, no, not really that, but maybe something else." So having that focus, we do psychometric testing to help people understand what job they should be looking for. So knowing what you're looking for and then having that experience in that is vital.
And is that fairly accurate, Yitzy, those psychometric tests?
The one we use, yeah, we spent hours. I mean, one of your members, David Shapiro, works for us, and he spent a lot of time researching all different ones, and we use Morrisby, and he came to me and said, actually, that's the best one. It's really accurate. You need support with it, meaning it might give you a choice of 8 careers, and you'll say, well, a Yiddish boy can't do that, a Yiddish person can't do that. But actually working backwards to understand why it's given that job, why it's given that recommendation is really helpful. So the test alongside a careers advice session is really important.
Yeah, can I add to that one? Because we do stereotype. I mean, our children, and even children think, well, yes, I've got to do, you know, a certain profession. And I work with engineering students, and it's surprising enough that I've met now quite a few young mainly from the male sector who've gone on to college to do the electrical side because they're practically minded. And I guess that this psychometric test will show if they've got more practically minded and see which way they can go. It doesn't give a bad result. It just tells them which direction they need to go, because there's no point in saying, well, I want to become a salesman, when they're better off working in a factory on the tools and fixing things, or doing some test and design. It's unfortunately, when I was a young boy, I decided what I wanted to do. My parents said, "Fine," that was it. But I tried to instill ideas to one of my sons, who rang me up from a yeshiva in Israel and said, "Dad, I don't want to be a solicitor. I want to do X, Y, Z," which is fine. And I think the tests that are available, which you've got in your place, are brilliant, because it may encourage them to do that sort of profession. And if they go for that, they will excel themselves and they'll do very well, and they'll earn themselves a good salary.
Well, in 2021, and I'm figuring that the answer to this is going to be yes, but I want a bit more detail than that. But in 2021, Yitzy, are there any jobs that aren't suitable for a Yiddish boy or a girl nowadays, other than, say, bacon tester in a bacon factory?
Rabbi.
Rabbi.
Absolutely. I'll take that. But I started in 2010, so I'm still working along with it.
Yeah.
But seriously, okay, look, there used to be, if you were to look at sort of how we as a sort of a demographic and as a community have evolved, we were immigrants who had perhaps only a chance at the very sort of manual labor jobs. So we went into textile factories and we worked with our hands, and schmatters was what we did. But then we educated our children in turn, and we wanted them to become professionals. So we pushed them into being dentists and doctors and accountants and solicitors, everything a Jewish mother wants their children to become. But we've moved on from there. We're a good few generations on. Are there any barriers to entry for Jewish people?
No, as long as it's communicated properly beforehand, there shouldn't be. I know people who are Amazon drivers. I'll be honest, one of them was a bit embarrassed to do it locally, so he chose another area. We've recently, negotiated with the NHS to allow uniforms which are halakhically acceptable, to allow to Shabbos off, and we've got 2 people who've just started training as nurses, and it's fantastic. They're managing to do 12-hour shifts during the week, so that they get 3 days on and then 5 days off, whatever it is. So that I don't think there's any barriers. I think communicating and making sure there's not that misunderstanding is so important with the employer beforehand.
It's fantastic work that you guys at Jewel are doing. What can we as a community practically do to support you?
Like I've mentioned before, if I'm honest, come to us a week before you're going to go to that high street, before you go to the website, Indeed, and read whatever they are. Just come and say, give us a few days. Can you try and find someone from the community? We don't expect you to lower your expectations or your requirements. You need someone to work full time. That's fine. You need someone to do a certain task or a certain experience. That's fine. We can't always have it. We might not always be able to, to find you a person, but just try us out before you go to the high street. It's all. I think that's the most I can ask.
We've got one late question here from Clive. Is there sufficient appropriate part-time work in Manchester for those Haredim who want to learn full-time but can't find the funding and need to mix work with learning?
So the answer to that, interestingly, part-time work is more popular than the full-time, whether that's recently because of flexible working, but we encourage employers, they'll split the job. There's a lot of people want part-time work, but a lot of employers are happy to consider part-time work as well, because they might get, more time in that way. The answer is yeah.
But I think if you want part-time work, you can also create your own things. So if you wanted to run an eBay business, you can run that part-time, and as long as you buy things at the right price and then sell them on eBay, things are working in the background, and you can take 2 or 3 hours a day to just fulfill your orders and to send everything out, etc., etc. It should still be possible. I think a lot of Jews that try to work in shatchening properties, I don't know how good they are, all of them, but you must know, yeah.
Anybody can do it.
I don't know. It's having the right connections with estate agents. That's what they say, David.
That's a difficult part of the job. But practically speaking, Yitzy, you touched on this earlier. There are people that want to. Well, it's every Jewish boy's dream to start up a business that becomes a mega business and does very well. But very often to do that, we need other people's experience, expertise, their help, their connections. Is there an opportunity for business owners and for I don't know, business lay leadership, if you like, to give to act really as mentors for that next generation coming up?
Yeah, thank you. That's something we've always very much try. People are always incredible, generous with their time. When we go to employers, we've got an event called Mind Your Own Business, actually, in a couple of weeks on Zoom on the 29th of June, I think it is. Contact Jewel to register. And it is two people from the community who are literally going to, they are business entrepreneurs, and they're going to talk about turning your dream into reality and managing their expectations, when you should go for it, when you shouldn't go for it. So a lot of people give their time, and if people want to offer mentors, we'd be so grateful for employers to offer that to us.
Who's going to be the two individuals? Have they been chosen already?
One, Mark Halpin. So he's interestingly did a degree, business management degree. He's a property developer, and then he went and did a business management degree. So Mochi Halpin or Mark Halpin, and a fellow called Betsy Rosengarten, a Swiss boy who's really entrepreneurial, got varied businesses, and helps people now to start up and pushes them to start businesses. That's
totally similar, that one.
Yes.
I think it's really important that I think it's the kind of giving. I mean, we talked about charitable giving or chesed, and not everybody can put their hand in their pocket and pull out a check and give it to charity or give it to somebody to help them start a business. But I believe that we all have a little bit of time that we can carve out and give to another person that can be more valuable than all the checks in all the world. And I would strongly encourage people who think that they may fit that category to reach out to Yitzy and get on board, because I think there's a lot of people that could benefit from your from your life's work and also your experience that you've gathered. Because a lot of us sort of have to make mistakes and learn the pitfalls of every profession and business. We may as well pass that on to people.
Yeah.
Right. Fantastic. I think we've kept you all awake for an hour now. I'm going to let you all go and have a schluff because it's tiring work being with us on a Sunday night. Yitzy, thank you very, very much for your time and for your expertise. Carry on the amazing work that you're doing within the community.
So we're to get in touch with Yitzy. If anybody does want to get in touch with Yitzy, can we put that information on the bottom or somewhere that people can see it, David? There might be people that watch this, or there will be people that watch this at a later point that will say, this guy's good, but how do I get in touch with him?
Yitzy, how do they get in touch with you? What's your email address, please?
Well, the office number is 0161 798 2123. Email address is office@jewel.org.uk, and the website jewel.org.uk.
office@jewel.org.uk, did you say?
Yeah, perfect.
Fantastic. And that's the website as well. We'll put that on there as well. If I may say as well, we're quite proud of you, Yitzy, I think a lot of people have watched you grow up in our shul, so it's always nice to welcome you back.
Yeah, fond memories.
Jeff?
Philip Morrison wants to know the date of the Zoom evening. What did we say? The 29th.
Yeah, Tuesday the 29th at 8 p.m.
Fantastic. So those details should be scrolling across the bottom of the screen now. Jeff Radovan, thank you very much for joining us as well this evening. It's fascinating to hear sort of a different, personal perspective of your route into your career and the sort of the types of discussions that you have with younger people who are looking to find their way in terms of vocations. And anybody who wants to speak to Jeff, you're also available, right?
Yes.
Best way to email you, Jeff?
Is Jeff at unicourse.org.
Yeah.
Jeff at unicourse.org.
No problem. Right, that is going into the comments now as well. And I think that's it. I think that really makes a very nice rounded discussion, and it's encouraging to hear that there are opportunities, and that for somebody that's willing to sort of work hard and show themselves to be fit for those roles, you'll do everything within your power to try and place them there.
Yitzy, if you want any ideas, you can get in contact with me. I'm quite happy to pop into the office in the evening and have a chat with you. Throw a few things at you that you may, and then you pass on to your possible people who are looking for work.
Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Thanks so much.
Thank you for inviting me. Take care.
Pleasure. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you again next week. Take care. Have a good week.